Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Blame It on Marketing with Emma and Ruta. And in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about how to be a good generalist, whatever that means. But we're going to get into it with our special guest, Michelle. So without further ado, please tell us a bit about you.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm Michelle Boland. I'm a fractional CMO, and I've been in marketing for over 20 years now, mostly in SaaS product. But I've had roles in events, product, key accounts, strategy, leadership, brand, content, digital, MarTech. The list goes on, and that really makes me a very proud generalist marketer. So delighted to be talking about that today.
Wonderful. So before we dig into the actual topic of the episode, we'd love to ask you what your biggest marketing fuck up confession is. This is the space. Just get it off your chest. We've all done it.
Confessional.
Mm.
Okay. So I tell this story to more junior staff members when they make their first big cock up, because it happens. We're all human. I was an exec, so I was in my very early 20s, working on a great automotive key account. It was quite a big deal for one of the agencies I work for. And I was new to the role, and it was the first time using their CRM to do some mail merge. We were going to do some email marketing. And I was, there's a bit of bravado. I was feeling it. I wanted to prove myself, and thoroughly matched the wrong letterhead to the wrong data sets. Pressed the button, and 20,000 dealer staff across the network got the wrong info about the wrong brand on the wrong paper.
Oh,
That is impressive. It's great.
Mortifying. Mortifying. I think that's the thing. At that point, there was still, back in the day, a lot of paper mail merge happening as well. And you could have saved it at that point. But with digital, it was just a nightmare from start to end. It was a humbling experience, a mortifying experience. But you know what? The motto that follows me now is always test. Always test, whether it's something to do with a mail merge, whether it's launching an entire web estate, or whether it's just you've done an update to a contact form. Test it, make sure it's happening, it's happening the way you want it to happen, and that you're happy with it. There was a groveling apology to that client on behalf of me and the key account director as well. I was infamous for quite a while, but it happens.
it's extra bad when it's agency, isn't it? Like if it's in-house, it's like, all right, someone fucked up. But like when you're paying an agency, I feel like you get extra stick as the
Oh yeah.
agency.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty terrible for a while, but we all got through it in the end.
Yeah, we're all here.
Yeah.
We all live to fight another day, right?
I mean, if you don't fuck up an email send, are you even a marketer at some point? Like,
Are
I
you
mean,
not?
that's the thing, right?
seriously.
It's either so many people of my age in marketing have got the whole, we printed out 20,000 letters, or or all of this paper went to waste, or we invited people to the wrong event. That has all happened to somebody in the past.
Yeah.
Now I think that the challenge is that because most things are digital, it's an immediate issue, and the clients can see it immediately. So you go directly from the high of, oh, look what I've just done, it's amazing, to, oh my God, it's the worst day of my life. Really quickly. Things change on a whim there. So
So, segueing nicely, I guess, into our key topic, Michelle, which is to do with, how to be a good generalist. First of all, I think we should clear up what the hell we mean by a generalist, because I think there is this assumption out there in the universe that a generalist marketer means you can do absolutely everything and you can do all of it really, really well. So yeah, from your perspective, what is a generalist, and kind of what's the difference maybe between a specialist and a generalist for you?
yeah, it's a great question. And you know what? I'm sure to other generalist marketers, it will mean, there's variations on this theme. But for me, the way I've always seen it as, it's a marketer who works across the marketing spectrum without a declared specialism, right? So it is someone that will have an understanding or some element of ability to do a little bit of everything. They may well have depth areas. So I have 3 core depth areas of strategy, brand, and customer experience. It might be content marketing, it might be brand, You've heard of these T-shaped marketers, F-shaped marketers, whatever it is. So those are generalists who've got really good understanding, but then have got depth areas. A specialist, however, is someone who's declared an area of depth. So they are working as a performance marketing manager or a paid specialist, CRM, digital, social, content, brand, CX, it goes on and on and on. And I mean, bit of history. It all sort of really kicked off about 20 odd years ago. So I was very new to the industry as a whole, or to the sector. And digital marketing became this title that everybody wanted. So if, as more and more companies brought on email marketing, brought on websites into their marketing mix, if you touch those things, it was gold, and you were known as a digital marketer. And that meant that you could go and demand, higher pay elsewhere. You were more in demand. So that's kind of the history of it. But there are definitely, I think, two camps between the generalist and the specialist.
It's funny because now when you say digital marketer, that to me is a generalist within the world of where we are now, because there's so many specialisms now within digital itself. And also, I'd just like to kind of reiterate, a generalist isn't someone that can do everything very well. Like every generalist comes with their own skill set. They just tend to be able to do a bunch of stuff and haven't niched down into, like you said, declared the thing that they're doing. But it doesn't mean you can expect them to be able to like do video editing and copywriting and graphic design and email. That's not what we're alluding to here. So sometimes generalists are looked at as kind of lesser than specialists, because as a generalist, we've got a kind of finger in all the pies and we can kind of do everything mildly well, but we might have an area where we exceed. But the specialists are kind of seen as like these prized possessions that are super like nerdy and niche and really cool. What's the deal with that? Is there a misconception around that? Obviously, I feel that way, but I don't know if you've ever encountered that in your career as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, and you know what, I get it a lot with newer staff members coming into marketing who are really in a rush to label themselves as something, and I always kind of urge them and counsel them to wait to see how things go, see what they like, have a bit of fun with it, learn lots, and then decide. But also decide, where do you want your career to go, and how will declaring a specialism affect that goal? So for me, those are kind of core important aspects of that. But I think there is a misconception. And I think the misconception is that, expert equals better, which of course sometimes it does, but it depends on the problem to be solved, right? And so for me, if I was tasked with creating a marketing function from scratch, which I have been in the past, for me, the first hires are always going to be generalist. You get more bang for your buck. You can spin up everything you need to spin up, whether it's paid, whether it's websites, whether it's social, whether it's brand, whether it's content. With good generalist marketers, you can spin up all those different aspects that you need. Then, as budget allows, or as your strategy kind of goes from creating the thing to actually, I want to conquer social media, then you can start bringing in experts or freelancing out for those different aspects of expertise. I think that's how I've always looked at it, because you can't create a marketing team from one single specialism. You're going to need generalists as the main backbone of that team to really make things go and operate it. So that's, in my mind, kind of how it comes down. However, it is about the job to be done and about the company at hand. So in my mind, neither is better. They both have a part to play in the wider organizational structure.
Yeah, I think some of the misconception around generalists and why maybe some people value specialists over generalists is that I think one of the mistakes quite a lot of businesses make, I think, in building out their initial marketing team, is they go, we'll just hire someone who can do a bit of everything. And then when they realise as they scale, they do need those specialists, because when you bring in an expert, everybody goes, oh yeah, or it's the new shiny thing. and there's an expert in it, everybody goes, oh, this person is so great, they know everything, and therefore the generalist is kind of like almost kind of shelved. I think there's and I think there's also a reality in the fact, in terms of earning power, versus being a generalist and a specialist. If you're a specialist, I think there's potentially zero cap on what you can earn as you grow in your level of expertise. And I think as a generalist, the reality is quite often, you guys can challenge me if you think I'm wrong, the route to earning more money, to getting further forward in your career, is to manage people and to become more and more senior. And therefore, that I feel like that's where some of that divide comes in. Whereas actually, for me, a really good generalist who can do all of, like, not everything, because we've just said not everything, but can do a lot of things really well and can execute quickly and efficiently and effectively and understands data and stuff, those to me are actually most of the time sometimes more valuable than an expert. Especially when you're in startup mode. So I don't know, like, do you guys agree with that? I think maybe that's it. It's because there's this kind of like two routes of like job career paths going on. They kind of act in tension.
I get that. Yeah, I was like, oh, I feel like it's easier for generalists to be CMOs and to be those senior positions. And then I'm like, well, that is the earning, but actually you're so right. We end up being in managerial positions where hopefully we're still getting to do some marketing, but I know a lot of us aren't at that point, and you're kind of dealing with strategy and politics and all those good fun things. So yeah, I totally get that, and you kind of maybe lose that marketing touch, which is the reason why I think most journalists aren't journalists, because we're people that maybe like variety and get a little bit bored. So then diving into being managerial is kind of like a specialism on its own, and then it's not fun anymore. But yeah, I also think that if you've never hired a senior generalist, oh my god, do it. Like, they will just make things work. Oh, it's beautiful. Like, if I could have a team, I'd just have like 3 senior journalists that I can be like, hey, can we go do that? And they'll be like, yeah, let's do it. No more questions asked. That's my happy place.
Dream squad.
Yeah, dream squad. But yeah, what do you think, Michelle, about kind of the earning potential and the promotion versus being a specialist and maybe being a freelance specialist? I guess that's where the real earning potential comes.
I would agree. There is a disparity, but I would challenge potentially, is it actually that there's a cap to a certain point? Because companies, larger companies would tend not to hire a CMO who's only done performance marketing or only wants to be known as a content marketer, because that's not going to do them any favors in the boardroom. There's no commerciality surrounding some of those specialisms. So I think there is, when you then start leaving the middle management area and then go into the more senior, I think things will start to even up. But certainly as a specialist, if you know your stuff and you're very good, yes, you can certainly bring in the money. But I think, Ruta, as you said, if you're a brilliant generalist and you work with some great brands, you also have the potential to bring in a lot of money, depending on what you do. I think it depends on the companies that you're working with, the brands that you're working with, how long you stay in companies. You might be shifting around a lot, but only working with the same brand. So I think there's a lot. Feels like another episode to unpack on that one, but yeah.
I know. I just wanted to play devil's advocate, because I think that is one of the things that drives people to becoming a specialist in the first instance when you're early on in your career, is that you feel like there's potential. Because I think, as much as everybody wants to be like, oh, I do marketing because it's really great and it's creative and I get to tick loads of boxes, for me personally, we still all go to work and we still all have to earn a living to survive. So, and I think, especially for people coming into the world of work now, with everything being more difficult for everybody, I feel like the potential for your earning power is something that people will be thinking about in their career decisions, like,
and more immediate earning power, right? Rather than maybe kind
long
of
term,
far out earning power.
I think it's about looking across. And again, I say it's about, what do you want to be at the end? What's your end goal? If you just want to be the high priestess of social for the rest of your life, amazing, go do that. You will definitely earn the money. But if you want more variety, you want to get into strategy, you might want to do board. What does that then look like, and what else do you need to do in order to make those dreams come true?
So, well, on that thread then, so what kind of skills do you think we need as generalists to be good, solid generalists?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question with many different answers. Like everything with marketing, it depends.
Yes.
It does. It depends. But I will say that I have a list of 10 that I've always found to be very helpful to me as a generalist marketer throughout my career. But again, it will change depending on the role and the job to be done at hand within a particular organization. So in at number 1, I feel like I'm doing a countdown. Always learning. You have to have the ability to learn quickly and really turn your hand to different things depending on the call of the job and what you're trying to achieve at that particular moment. So an affinity, I think, for learning is really important. The second thing is how to write a marketing plan. It's a skill unto itself, absolutely integral. You can't outsource it. It has to be done by you, yourself, and I, especially as a senior generalist marketer. So that's everything from diagnosis through to strategy and smart objectives through to the tactics you're going to use to achieve that. Drilling all of that down. So then in at number 3 has to be data research and insight. So understanding how to put research into the market, crunching the data once you get it back, and then deriving the insights to allow you to then segment and understand who your target customer really is and what they want. The fourth thing I would say then, campaign planning. Really tricky to outsource or to bring in just a specialist for, because it's connected to so many different aspects. For me personally, at least. So, what channels you're using, the mediums of the messaging, what you're going to say and what you're not going to say. It all falls within that. And for me, I've always found it really integral to be able to do. The fifth thing is brand governance. So if you are in an organization and they're looking to refresh the brand, you can bring in a branding agency for that. You can bring in a brand director. But as a generalist marketer, you have to understand how to govern that brand properly. It's really crucial because it's everything from tone of voice to what you want the customers to think about you, to being able to provide good creative direction on your assets. It's everything. That's really, really crucial, and understanding how to govern appropriately will help you enormously. Customer experience, close to my heart, but it should be close to every marketer's heart. It's the underpinning of everything that we do. And it's not just about marketing. It's about, if you want customers to think that you're brilliant in a particular way because of a particular product, you need to look at every touch point. And that is the customer experience, whether it's digital, whether it's customer service, whether it's in-store bricks and mortar, it doesn't matter. It's the whole caboodle. So understanding how to look and really break down customer journeys, that's all part of that, and really, really will be helpful to you in your journey. Finance management in at number 7, the ability to build a budget, keep to a budget, and also understand profit and loss, and potentially have accountability for that. Really, really important. Understanding the marketing contribution to the overall company financials. Killer, absolutely killer. More marketers need to think about the commercial side of things. Martech for me is number 8. So the ability to really jump in, get stuck in with various CRM, CMSs, your project planning tools, whether it's Basecamp, whether it's Monday, your planning tools like Notion, scheduling, whatever it might be. That's really important. And then you've got things kind of I call like the underpinning, which is sort of project management and sponsorship. But it's not about necessarily how to run a project as a project manager. It's about how do you move a project forward. So if you've outsourced the build of a website, or you've brought in a performance marketer to look at, I don't know, your SEO or your performance around a website, how do you keep that project on track? How do you report on it appropriately to the senior team? And how do you really keep it going and keep it in scope? That's a really great skill to have. And the 10th one I would say is vendor management and procurement. So that's everything from understanding the policy, what you are and aren't allowed to do within your role, how much you can and can't spend with a single supplier, what the contracts say, being able to sign those, understand the legalese of them. But also, I think the negotiation up front, because a lot of the time a generalist marketer will be doing the negotiation depending on the seniority. That's really crucial as well. So doing that with, I think, confidence is really, really important. Everything else I've found in various roles, I can either hire in for or outsource. But these are the things that if I didn't know, I wouldn't be able to do my job.
I would like to add one on top. It's like a layer on top of your 10, which is to do with, and this is because I see people go, this is where I see people go wrong so often, because they sort of neglect their internal and external relationships with people. Ruta and I have talked so much about this. It's like, if you have Michelle's skill set, so if you can do Michelle's top 10, but you suck at communicating with people, you know, that is going to be the nail in your coffin, because it's like you can be as useful to everybody as Michelle's outlined. Like, you can do all those things, you can be really good, you can manage a budget, you can do all that, but if you really aren't good at communicating with people, and that's really hard, that's a really hard skill to learn. So I'm accepting and acknowledging that that's not as easy as being like, be better at communicating, because it's not as straightforward as that, because you've got to kind of understand where the challenges are. But I think that takes a little bit of introspection, a little bit of like, if you feel like you're getting unnecessary pushback from people, or people aren't understanding you for whatever reason, and that's frustrating, I think do that little bit of like, self-coaching, where you kind of step back and go, why am I not having the kinds of conversations that I feel are really fruitful and effective when I'm able to do all these things? And if you feel like that, and you also feel undervalued as well, I think that can sometimes be a sign that it might not be you, it might not be your skill set that's the problem, but it might be the way that things are being communicated. So just take a step back and do that. Don't know if you guys would agree with that. I'm trying to be helpful without just being like, just be better at talking.
No, but I think that's true. And I think, you know, I approach my list is very much about how to do the job of marketing. I think there's an entire sort of exoskeleton around that of soft skills and intangible skills, like communication, like being able to manage people effectively, um, being able to engage with stakeholders and actually sort of, you know, pull what you know, understand that it's not just necessarily the loudest person in the room is the person you should be listening to. I think again, there's probably another top 10 we could do on just those soft skills, but I would absolutely agree. Telling people and making sure they're informed, asking them how they could be better informed, it's important.
That was a chef's kiss list that's going into a post somewhere. It's all happening. I've got nothing to add. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a lot, but also I totally agree that all of those things are key. Like, if one of those falls down, you'll struggle at some point to be a generalist and get your work done, probably. So speaking of being a generalist and maybe potentially hiring generalists with this kind of list of skills that you mentioned, how should we be looking at one, supporting them, because again, they can do a lot, but they still need support. But two, also compensating them, and kind of what looks appropriate when you look at generalists versus specialists, if you have any thoughts on that.
So I think in terms of support, I mean, it's the same sort of support I would offer a specialist, but I think with a generalist, it's really important to have that conversation about a personal development plan. So and it's kind of feeds into, you know, what are they good at, what aren't they so good at in their own heads, juxtaposed against what does the organization at this point need them to be good at, and, you know, potentially upskilling, because I think that there's always the potential to upskill in different areas with generalists. So really, for me, PDP really important, helping them build their marketing village. So, you know, whether it's there's nothing sadder than a lonely marketer, let's face it, but yeah, so whether it's you know, introducing them to podcasts like this, where they sort of have their brain stretched a little bit by other people in the sector, or it's understanding, what exhibitions or conferences they should go to, or looking at something like the marketing meetup where they can go in sort of in person. All of these different aspects, I think, can help people be more rounded in their roles. But I would conversely say that's as important for specialists as it is for generalists. For any marketer, it's good to understand, what are you good at, what are you not so good at, and what do we really need to focus on. So, but also having that budget is really important for generalists. So, if you are bringing someone in to do an awful lot of something in a potentially a smaller company, then, don't make them cry for budget for paid advertising. Don't stifle them in terms of if they do need to hire in an expert somewhere. I think you have to be open to that.
Don't hire a marketer if you think that your only spend is going to be their salary.
Oh my God.
Hire one unless you want them to, I don't know, help you write a couple emails here or there, because just don't bother. But they'll probably be miserable too. So just don't do that.
I've literally been having this conversation this week with several different people who, unfortunately, this week seems to be the week where lots of marketers in my network are having a really horrible time losing their jobs. Like, it's not nice out there at the moment. It's really bad. And I think that's one of the key things, that the mistakes that people have made. You're hiring in marketers, you are not giving them a budget, but then their salary is a line in your budget, like no one else's is, as in like a line on the you're on your P&L as like a kind of like, oh, we spent this on marketing, why didn't we get anything back? No, that's just a person. You didn't spend any money on marketing. So there is a difference, isn't there, between resource and if you want to call it ad spend or whatever, like however you want to categorize it. That's a big no. Like, don't hire marketers if you're not going to give them a budget, man. Just stop it.
I mean, yeah, I think the thing is that, as a generalist, I see myself as a conductor of an orchestra, right? A marketing, and you have to have the money to buy the different aspects that you need, whether that's tech, whether that's creative assistance, whether that is a person or an agency to help you run page properly and get the most out of it. It isn't just a single line of anything, but spend the money on the right things, you'll get it back. And then some. There will always be a return on that investment. In fact, it's one of the only departments that you can say that about, in terms of linking actual money to spend. So I think, for me, that is a massive one. I would say for generalists as well, it's really important that they have access to maybe coaching or mentoring as well for other, like, especially if they think, oh, you know what, I'd really like to be a CMO or a marketing director, or I'd like to do this. Making sure they have the ability to have those conversations, I think, really important. And then as well, the aspect of collaboration within the business. So if you don't have a specialist product marketer who's going to be sitting right by product and sales and pulling out all of those features and benefits and understanding what the customers pain points are, the generalist has to go and fulfill that function. So making sure that they are invited into those spaces, super important. Compensation wise, you know what, that's a market force in many respects. So I don't ever like spending more on a specialist than a generalist, because when I look at the amount of work a generalist has to do to be a good generalist, it's the same amount of work as a specialist has to do
on one thing.
Yeah.
It's
I tend to look at, and I've been in organizations that look at exec level, associate manager level, and higher within bandings like that, which I think makes it fairer.
Absolutely. One of the things that you kind of touched on a little bit, but I just wanted to also add is, in terms of the coaching aspects, I think it's important to get coached by someone who is doing the thing or has done the thing you want to get to. But I think also as a generalist, you gain a lot in your job if you actually look outside of your function, because part of being a generalist is kind of getting the business as a whole rather than just marketing by itself. So talking to a CS, talking to finance, talking to sales, and maybe getting some coaching from them around what their world looks like and how we can impact their world is a huge game changer. I think that maybe sometimes marketers don't consider.
Aspect, right? It's so crucial. making sure that, you know, marketing is one of those things. It should be in every decision made in the business. It is a factor within every aspect of the business, which means that a generalist marketer should be invited into each one of those aspects, in order to, you know, not just have their opinion heard, but understand what's going on. It's really difficult to market effectively if you have no understanding of what's going on in the larger business.
Yeah. I think that's so hard. Like, I speak to so many marketers who are like, they're not even allowed to have access to like the company financial situation, things like that. Like, they have no idea what's going on. So you're just completely marketing blindly. I was going to add this point, which was completely very shady to specialists, not to generalists, because I feel like, you know, we're in the generalist gang here, so we can say what we want. But it's like, so I work with a lot of specialists who also kind of don't lift their head out and look at the rest of the full scope of marketing. They kind of forget that there's all this other stuff going on. So like, because they're involved in like PPC, for example, and they're like, everything is happening because of PPC. It's like, well, actually, if you scratch the surface, that's not quite what's going on. And actually, like, we all know that in order for marketing to work, it's got to be holistic. It's got to be across all of these digital channels and offline channels, potentially, depending on what you're doing. And so, you know, like, as a specialist, it's as important to understand the full marketing ecosystem and, you know, how you impact the business and how you impact the full scope of marketing. And because I work with so many specialists, I don't know if you guys have had this experience where they don't do that. That is as frustrating as a generalist who's like a bit terrified to kind of go and push their way into conversations about product or sales or whatever else like that. So yeah, everybody's getting a little smack today to go and
one of the really good conversations I had recently with someone who's a PPC specialist and is fantastic, but they're in-house, is like, I need you to worry about the leads coming in from when they come in and how you get them in through what campaign to until they sit their first meeting. Like, I want you to be your remit. It's not just, did I pull someone in at the right price? Because if you're looking at that wider remit, it means that you can actually evaluate how good your campaigns are on like a very business direct level. And it might sound like a pain and you just want to optimize your pages or whatever it is, but that will get you so much further in your specialist career as well, because you can actually pinpoint, hey, I did this and this is the outcome and this is how I changed it and this is what it led to in the business. So just widening that scope a little bit, I think, is useful for anyone. And you're not getting into generalist territory at that point. You're just kind of like looking after your leads, basically.
Yeah, you become strategic. It's the bit of marketing that you're responsible for becomes more strategic, which is what we all want. Like, as 3 fractional CMOs, we're sitting here saying like, we really want our specialists and generalists to kind of become that, right? So that when whatever they're inputting is supporting the overarching strategy, not just like, I do my bit of marketing really well, screw you guys. It's not helpful. So last question before we get into some marketing gossip with you, Michelle, is, if you are a generalist and you are, you know, like, you do lots of different things, but there are things that you can't do, because of course there's stuff that all of us can't do. How can you effectively communicate that back to senior leaders? Because I think that's sometimes part of the problem, right? Is they're like, oh, but you're just like marketing manager, you can do everything, right? So how would you go about explaining to someone who doesn't know much about marketing what you can and can't do?
Yeah, again, I don't think there's a silver bullet for this, guys, which is reminding me of the post you guys had a little while ago.
I should have worn my hoodie. Again.
There is no proper silver bullet for this. I think it comes down to, you know, who was the hiring manager that brought you into the business. So, you know, if it was the CEO, it's having that really honest conversation with them at that point that says, you know, these are my myriad of strengths, and what I know from being within your business for 1, 2, 3 months, however long, or the business is changing, and therefore we need to focus on this more. This is something I understand, but it's not something I'm an expert in. In order to achieve our objectives, what we need to do is outsource or hire in. And this is the business case that will support that. So I think that's how I've done it in the past. You know, I've been tasked with taking on all sorts of things that I had not a Scooby-Doo about when I started doing it. But you just that's not always anything, right? You have to throw yourself in. If your manager's not coming up with a PDP with you, actively do it yourself and say, I need budget because we need to do this. Or, you know what, our execs need to be far more trained in GA4 because they understood GA, but let's face it, it's completely different now. So, we need to dedicate quality time for them within the business to learn this new skill, or we're going to need to outsource it, or we ignore it and we fail. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as that. But yeah, different managers, different hiring styles, different companies will have different expectations. If you're in a mum and pop small company, you're a marketing coordinator and your role is to write some newsletters, update some web estate, and do a couple of socials. If that's all you're doing and that's what you're hired to do and you're happy with that, great. If you see there's an opportunity to do something else, or if you're being asked to do something else and you don't have the skill set, you're not a wizard. You're going to need to do it by somebody. And
Fake it till you make it.
I'm not a wizard.
But there's also sometimes a softer conversation, I think, around this, which is I can do the thing, but it takes me so long to do it. It's completely inefficient because I can do it, but I'm not an expert. So can we get someone else in so I can do the things that I'm more efficient at and will have more value?
And that's the thing, whether it's that softer conversation, as I said, in terms of I understand it or I've had some exposure to it, but I'm not an expert in it. And, we need more punching power with it. For me, there's lots of different ways that it can be done. But I think you just have to be really honest. There's no point in, unless you are a wizard, digging yourself a hole where you've sold yourself in as one thing and you are not that thing. Then you're going to come a cropper, essentially.
Yeah. Because people will want to know where the thing is eventually, right? It's like, and there's you just scrambling around on the internet. There's only so far Google will get you before actually it's just really hard. And yeah, you have to go one of the they're both very good ways of dealing with that, I think. Yes. But obviously judge your audience.
Yeah. I've also had conversations where like, oh, well, if you want to be this seniority, you need to be able to do this, this, and this. And like that list might include graphic design and being a really, really good copywriter. And I'm like, that's not what this is. So it's especially hard to have those conversations if you're more junior, obviously, because it is what's being expected. But go read some job descriptions, go like look through stuff, just make sure that what is being asked of you is actually reasonable. And if it's not, maybe you can educate, or maybe it's going to be hard for you to achieve what you want in this company, and that's something to think about. But yeah, just being clear on what's actually reasonable and what are other specialisms that at no point should it be a given that you can do.
One of the things we've done, and it's like sort of it's flipping something that we did once, Ruta, because Ruta and I used to work in house, everybody probably knows that, together, is that we had this kind of way of, for our subject matter expert, categorizing content that needed certain input from people. And I think that might also be a way, a kind of get out of jail free card for things that you can do versus you can't. So say, for example, you've got a campaign and there's a branded piece of content that needs creating, and you put in there like, actually this has to go to a graphic designer because based on what Michelle was saying about being the guardian of your brand, that needs to be done properly by a graphic designer because it's in this category of content, versus social media posts because they're quick and dirty, they only live for like 30 seconds if you're lucky, and therefore we don't want to spend the money on the graphic designer. We can do that in Canva and we're happy with that. And I think those things sometimes are also useful tools if it is difficult, because it is then like, well, I've come up with a framework that basically tells you like gives you the kind of when I can pull the lever of being able to say this is something that has to go external versus something that I can manage myself. If it is really hard, I think that's probably for people who are like, I can't speak to my CEO without wanting to die. I think that's maybe your camp. You maybe need to draft up your little framework, because that is a reality for some people as well. So yeah, give that a go maybe.
So have you got any marketing gossip you want to discuss? Something that you've seen, something that's stuck in your mind, living rent free, that you just need to get out?
Well, I think it kind of goes back to, it's not so much gossip as something that's rankling my chain at the moment. And it goes back to a couple of things we've been talking about, and that is what I like to call the rise of the unicorn marketer, as seen in job specs everywhere right now. You know, marketing's going through a tough time, and marketers are being kicked a lot right now out of jobs within the market. The, yeah, I know a lot of people, and it's it's a difficult market. It's a difficult situation. But the rise of the unicorn marketer is what's really rankling me. These are essentially generalists, but they must be experts in everything. So they must be yeah, all marketing areas, but they must be a leader and have years of experience of being a leader, but also understand at a deeply operational level how to use a particular CRM or a particular type of management report or Google Analytics and be able to pull absolutely everything themselves. They must be expert copywriters, obviously. They must be able to go in and create assets themselves within Canva. They must be in the office 5 days a week, obviously.
Obviously.
And all for the bargain price of well below the standard market rate.
50k.
Yeah. And you'll get the title of CMO, but you'll actually be expected to do everything from marketing admin all the way through to, yeah. I mean, you might get to sit on a board somewhere, but how you'll have time to do that, I have no idea.
And remember, the only budget is your salary.
And where do you think, where's that coming from, Michelle? Is that marketers perpetuating the marketing unicorn, or is it people's expectations of marketers?
I think it is. I think it's symptomatic of the fact that there's not a huge amount of money within the hiring economy currently, and a lot. I mean, it's market forces really, but there's a lot of private equity money that's being held back because of the interest rates. If we wanted to go economically about it all, and that is having a massive impact on senior hires particularly, but it's also obviously then a trickle-down system, and we're seeing it throughout. So companies don't have the budgets that they had in 2022 to do the same sort of hiring, and they are literally trying to get an entire marketing team for one person when they're in, and as I said, if you're in a mum and pop company that's very, very small and it's a doable job, I know many, and I started out with many of those people who were in those types of roles, and they're great learning experiences. But we're talking about companies that are actually tens of millions in turnover, sometimes hundreds of millions in turnover, looking for this unicorn because supply is massively outweighing demand. So they're trying to be choosy as they like, all of these different aspects for these unicorns that don't really exist, because, as I said, nobody knows how to do everything as well as an expert. That it's impossible. And so all that's going to happen is, these poor marketers that are looking for roles will take a job like this if they can get themselves hired. But as soon as the economy shifts, they will be off again. And that's
Well, either that or you'll get absolute burnout. The scapecorn. They will though. Like, you will talk yourself into a job like that, because let's face it, like, we've all probably done it at some point. We've bitten off more than we can chew, but we've gone, yeah, I'll give it a crack, I'll give it a go. And then you get in there and you realise you can't do everything, and you're burnt out and you're frazzled, and you end up feeling awful about yourself, which I'm going to say, Ruta and I, we've been there. So it's not nice. Don't do it. Don't fall for the trap, but also stop advertising for that, because it's not
I
real.
think that's the thing. For me, it just shows an inherent lack of understanding about the vocation and an inherent lack of respect towards the marketers at hand. So yeah, just have some more damn respect, people.
And if you don't respect us, we're going to keep disrespecting you. So there you go.
Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to Blame It on Marketing.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. You've clearly got a lot of passion about this topic, and you've thought about it, and it's beautifully come through. So thank you for having us and being here. And yeah, we hope to see you on blameItonmarketing.com. That's our community where we can chat to each other and give our little marketing gossip and confessions on. So yeah, until the next one, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.